Welcome to The Explainer. I am so thrilled you're tuning in today because we are tackling a massive operational challenge that is literally keeping business leaders up at night. We're breaking down a strategic blueprint designed to close that frustrating, giant gap between building a cool voice AI prototype and actually achieving a reliable, large-scale production deployment. We're talking about finally ditching those agonizing old phone systems and stepping into a world where voice agents actually work. Let's get into it.
Okay, here is a quick look at what we're covering today. 1. Moving beyond the IVR ceiling. 2. Finding your primary goal. 3. The hidden orchestration trap. 4. Designing for the ear. And 5. Mastering production edge cases.
Section 1. Beyond the IVR ceiling. To really understand why all of this matters so much, I want you to picture this scenario. It's 11 p.m. on a freezing Tuesday in January, and Audrey's furnace just completely dies. She's panicked, right? She calls her local HVAC company. But instead of help, a robotic voice says, "Press 1 for sales, press 2 for service, press 3 for billing." She presses 2, boom, another menu. She presses 3 for emergency service. And then she just sits on hold. After 4 agonizing minutes listening to elevator music, she hangs up and immediately calls a competitor. That company didn't just lose a $400 service call, they lost a customer for life. And why? Simply because their phone system was a disastrous maze designed entirely for the company's convenience, not hers. Which brings us to a really fundamental shift. Legacy IVR systems, that's interactive voice response, they are incredibly deterministic and rigid. They only understand the exact rigid options you pre-program into them. If a caller gets confused or asks a complex question, the system just forces a choice or it totally fails. But modern voice agents, totally different ballgame. They use large language models and advanced speech recognition to understand actual semantic meaning. They can generalize context. They can naturally ask clarifying questions, and they act as universal specialists. They can handle scheduling, billing, and support all within one fluid, natural conversation. But there's a catch, and it's summed up perfectly by this quote. Most pilots succeed. Most production deployments fail. Wow, that hits hard, doesn't it? The gap between a really fun, impressive demo and a working enterprise system isn't technical anymore. The technology is absolutely ready and waiting. The gap is operational. To survive high-emotion situations, manage wild exceptions, and handle complex real-world edge cases, well, that requires strict rules and serious operational infrastructure. Section 2. Finding your primary goal. That operational discipline we just talked about, it starts entirely with strategy. Look, if your voice agent tries to serve multiple masters, it is going to fail, period. Every single design choice involves a trade-off. There are generally 3 main goals you can choose from: cut costs, fix customer experience, or drive revenue. Let me tell you about Nadia. She was scoping a project for a major logistics company. Her team did the research and found that 90% of their call volume was just spent verifying certificates of insurance. So naturally, she pitched an agent to automate that specific task and cut costs. Makes sense, right? But the VP of product stopped her. He pointed out that their actual burning problem wasn't cost at all. They were leaking massive subscription revenue because independent drivers were getting frustrated and giving up on installing their tracking app. Nadia almost mapped an entirely wrong journey simply because she didn't realize the true primary goal was capturing revenue.
So, once you have your primary goal locked in, you have to score your candidate use cases. You do this using a priority matrix. Basically, you mathematically score candidates based on their feasibility, meaning are the APIs ready, is it low complexity, is it low risk, and you weigh that against their actual business impact. You plot them on a grid, and you always start with what we call a P1 flagship project. These are the absolute goldmine use cases that boast both high feasibility and high business impact.
But the absolute most crucial point here is this strict constraint. You must choose one goal, just one. If you optimize for customer experience, sure, cost savings will often naturally follow because happy customers simply call less often. But you literally cannot optimize for both simultaneously. Every single conversation design trade-off needs one undisputed tiebreaker to guide it when things get tricky. Section 3. The hidden orchestration trap. Enterprise leaders frequently underestimate the immense, heavy infrastructure required to actually succeed at scale. They think they're just deciding whether or not to build a voice agent, but in reality, they're deciding whether to build a massive, highly complex orchestration layer. Let me share Daniel's corporate horror story to expose just how painful this reality can be.
Daniel's team had 6 weeks to build a voice agent demo. And hey, it worked great on a single server. The CTO loved it, approved it immediately. But over the next 3 months, the team got completely bogged down. We're talking audio codecs, SIP trunking, messy carrier relationships. It was a nightmare. By month 6, they had burned through their entire year's budget essentially trying to build a small telephony company from scratch. Finally, after a full year of miserable struggling, they gave up on DIY and migrated to a managed, customizable platform. And guess what? That migration took just 6 weeks.
We really have to contrast these opposing concepts to force some clarity here. Demo reality is a single server handling one clean call at a time. Easy. But production reality? That requires sub-second latency while simultaneously juggling 200 concurrent calls, audio streams, real-time transcriptions, and language models seamlessly. Building a voice agent is really at its core about conquering this hidden multi-agent orchestration trap. Because when you choose to go full DIY, these are the heavy foundational layers you are committing to manage. You have to handle real-time audio buffers, you need failovers for when speech recognition inevitably degrades, you have to maintain context and state across transferred calls, and you have to deal with complex telephony integrations. This is exactly why most smart enterprises ultimately land on a customizable platform. You want your highly paid engineers focusing on your core business logic, right? Not messing around with telecom plumbing? Section 4. Designing for the ear. Now let's shift our focus away from the heavy infrastructure and talk about the highly human element of conversation design. We're going to lean on some expert insights from 2 incredible designers, Elena and Nina, who learned some really hard lessons about how people actually listen. Voice is not text. This is a golden rule, and I cannot emphasize it enough. Elena initially tried taking her absolute best-performing chatbot paragraphs and just copying them directly over to a voice agent, and it failed instantly. Why? Well, think about it. In a chat interface, a user can easily reread a message or copy and paste a confirmation number. But in audio, every single word exists for exactly one moment in time. If a caller is distracted and misses a word, it's just gone forever. Because of this fleeting nature of audio, Elena learned you have to implement a super strict turn-taking structure. Every single time the agent speaks, it needs to follow this pattern. Acknowledge that you heard them, act by doing something actually useful, and advance the conversation forward. And most importantly, you need what's called progressive confirmation. If you collect a date, the agent needs to repeat it back immediately. Do not wait until the very end of a 5-minute call to summarize a bunch of details, because if they got the date wrong back on step 1, you have literally just wasted the entire conversation. Now, let's talk about Marcus. He had a brutal realization about call direction. He had this gorgeous inbound agent that worked beautifully, so he figured, hey, I'll just copy it for an outbound campaign. It was an absolute disaster. Why? Because inbound design is all about discovering intent. The caller actively wants to be there. They called you. Outbound design, however, is entirely about earning permission. Greeting an outbound contact like an inbound caller leads to immediate, totally frustrated hangups. Let's elaborate on this stark difference, because it's a game changer. For an inbound call, a warm, simple, "Thanks for calling, how can I help?" is perfect. But outbound agents, they're actively interrupting someone's day. They have to establish context and earn the right to continue within the very first 10 seconds. They must immediately identify who they are, state their purpose for calling, and explicitly ask permission to continue. Tone is also absolutely critical here. Nina taught Marcus a really vital lesson. A voice persona isn't just cosmetic marketing fluff. It is a highly operational conversion lever. You basically have 4 dials: warmth, formality, pace, and assertiveness. A patient scheduling agent, that needs high warmth. A collections agent, that needs much lower warmth but very high professionalism. And crucially, these dials must remain totally unflappable under caller stress. If a caller gets angry or yells, the AI shouldn't ever get defensive. It should calmly acknowledge the emotion and hold its character. Section 5, Mastering Production Edge Cases. Listen, the happy path where everything goes perfectly, that's just a demo. True production readiness is defined entirely by how your system manages the unexpected. The edges are where production actually lives. To manage this chaos, you absolutely must define hard boundaries. A hard boundary is a critical, non-negotiable concept. It's a predefined condition where the agent must immediately transfer the caller to a human without even attempting a messy retry loop. Marcus only achieved true, stable production when he finally stopped trying to automate every single weird edge case he found in the call logs and instead built graceful, immediate exits. This list right here,
These are your absolute non-negotiables. If a caller becomes abusive, if they mention lawsuits or lawyers, if they continually fail identity checks, ask about highly sensitive contract terms, or make out-of-scope technical requests, the agent stops trying immediately. It executes a seamless, context-rich warm transfer, meaning it briefly messages the human operator on the situation before connecting the caller, so the frustrated customer never has to repeat themselves. Every single edge case requires a definitive choice between handling it and escalating it. If it's structured and low risk, handle it. If it requires high stakes human judgment, escalate it immediately. And all of this decision making is guided by that primary goal we talked about earlier. Oh, and you also have to implement strict engineering guardrails, things like unique request IDs, to prevent the AI from accidentally duplicating errors. You definitely do not want it booking the exact same appointment twice during a confusing retry loop.
We'll conclude our explainer today with this ultimate provocative litmus test. Ask yourself this. If you hired a genuinely smart new employee and handed them only your current written documentation, could they handle this workflow on day one? If the answer is no, your AI is going to fail too. An AI agent will always reflect the exact quality of your internal rules and documentation. It cannot guess your unwritten tribal knowledge. Keep your scope tight, design for the ear, and know your boundaries. That is exactly how you turn a fun voice agent demo into a powerful production reality. Thank you so much for joining me on The Explainer today, and I'll catch you next time.